This is ContraZoom, where we go back and forth about film. I'm Dakota Arsenault.
I'm Matthew Simpson.
And I'm Jeff Bulmer.
Over the week of May 30th to June 1st, the Canadian Screen Awards were handed out this year. The CSA celebrate the best in Canadian film, television, and digital media. This is the fourth year in a row that we've covered the awards, with our coverage this past year being the biggest yet. In the show notes, you'll find a link to collected reviews of films that were nominated this year, and we covered an impressive 22 movies. And while I haven't confirmed it, I believe ContraZoomPod.com is the most comprehensive place for CSA coverage. No one fact-check me on that, please. So, for the first time as co-host, I am joined by both Matthew Simpson and Jeff Bulmer. Welcome back, guys.
Hey.
Yay! Glad to be here.
Yeah. Have the two of you ever recorded together with me? I don't know.
I have been on a podcast with Jeff. I've been on his podcast, and I've been on your podcast, and you have been on my podcast.
Yep.
But I've never been on a podcast with both of you.
I think we almost recorded together once, and then it didn't work out for some reason.
I mean, technically, if you want to cheat, you've both contributed like voicemail recordings to episodes of mine, and I think Jeff and I have both contributed like voice messages to recordings of yours.
Yeah.
But we never.
And those have been in the same episode.
Yeah. But we never like been live on air at the same time.
Okay, so basically, effectively, what just happened there is we just performed the Spider-Man meme of the three of us pointing at each other, being like, I've been on your show, and I've been on your show.
Yeah, and I did it.
Yeah.
It's a one-man show. I did that all by myself. It's
although, thank you for reminding me, because it's been a while since Matthew's been on our show, and I have like 3 or 4 episodes that you might be interested in, so we'll talk later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, I love hearing the goods. Awesome. Well, this was the 13th Canadian Screen Awards since they combined the Genies and the Geminis, which the main television portion was hosted by comedian Lisa Gilroy. Universal Language had the most nominations of any film with 13, and the movie came away with the most wins as well with 6. The Apprentice was the second most awarded film with 5 wins, while Paying for It and The Shrouds both had 2 wins. Films like Seeds, Village Keeper, and Seven Veils each walked away with a single award, among others. So yeah, let's before we kind of get deep into this, what we'll be doing is talking about 10 of the big movie categories, listing off who won and who we would have picked for the same awards, because just it's a way for us to kind of talk about all the different movies that we watched this year. But before we get off this subject, what did you think of the nominees this year? Personally, I was very happy with a lot of the nominees. I really liked a lot of these films, and I think most interestingly enough, this might have been the year where it was easiest to watch films in terms of ones that were nominated. Matthew, I know you did a whole bunch of crunch work right at the end, trying to cram in as many as you could before this recording. What are your overview thoughts of the CSAs this year?
So I would basically agree. I think I'm not going to go so far as to say that the quality level is higher this year, but certainly the popularity level of films this year was probably higher. Like, it was a lot easier. It's one of my big complaints with the Canadian Screen Awards every year is that oftentimes it's kind of hard to find and watch the nominees. And this year, that actually wasn't very true. Like, this year, going into, say, 2 weeks ago, I had only seen, of the Best Picture nominees, I had only seen 3 of the 6, and now I've seen 5, and they were super easy to come by. I had only seen, 1 or 2 of the, like, Best Lead Performance nominees, and now I've seen most of them. Because they were just easy to find. Like, as much as I like to complain about the consolidation of, say, streaming and on-demand and the Blu-ray market in this country, like, it is very convenient that most of the stuff is just either on CBC Gem or Crave. Mm-hmm. And weirdly, 1 or 2 are on Tubi, which is...
Yes, yeah. A couple horror thrillers this year were on Tubi, which was awesome.
Yeah,
I think one might have even been a Tubi original.
Oh, really? Which one was that? Hunting Days?
I want to say the Winona Earp movie was a Tubi original.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah, the TV movie, which won. She won Best Lead Performer for TV movie. That was great.
Nice.
I really like Melanie Scrofano. She's great. So, I was really happy to see her win that TV award.
And what about you, Jeff? What were your sort of overview thoughts of the CSAs and the ability to watch films this year?
I mostly agree. I think it was like I could have probably watched 90% of these if I'd put in a little more work. Unfortunately, I have a pretty embarrassing performance here. I hit under 50%, but but as I was looking through over the last couple of days to see like what I could theoretically still get to if I decided to not sleep instead. Um, Almost all of these. So I was very impressed by how accessible all of them were. I think I do agree with Matthew as well that the quality wasn't necessarily uh, incredible on average. Maybe I don't know. I did like a lot of the movies I saw here, but I
So,
also there's a few that I didn't love.
so I mean, I don't mean to imply that like these movies are the Canadian Screen Award nominees are bad often, which is kind of what it sounds like in hindsight. But I'm just trying to acknowledge that like I don't think it's a big secret that the bulk of our infrastructure for making movies goes to U.S. productions, and
Mm-hmm.
there's very little left over, very little time, money, equipment, people. Like we don't give the arts in this area necessarily the time and resources that we should. And that doesn't mean we make bad movies. It just means we make lower budget movies, um, and oftentimes they're again harder to come by. So it's not so much that they're bad, it's just that like there's one in particular that I'm sure we'll talk about later where like I think is a fine movie and probably would have been a great movie if they'd had the time and budget to even just shoot it a little better, like, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. We tend to be like good narrative, good performances, and then like sort of let down by like budgetary limitations or technical limitations. It's a really weird, it's an interesting thing to think about, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope that we're shifting that a little bit. It's something maybe Dakota you can speak to a little more, being in the industry, but like that's what it feels like to me.
And one other thing that I know I did mention on our lead up episode or our nominations episode for this, and that I think plays in there too, is the Canadian Screen Awards. There were 73 movies nominated today, if you count the shorts. So in reality, it's maybe closer to like 50, but that's still a huge number of movies. If the Oscars nominated 70 movies, uh, it would also you'd also have some that are really good and some that maybe aren't as good.
Yeah,
Like
for
you're
sure.
just at that many movies, you're gonna have a variance of quality.
I made a letterbox list actually just for myself to help keep track of what I'd seen and what I hadn't. And I only put in the narrative movies, so no docs, no shorts, no TV. And there's 41, which is a lot, like of just
Oh wow.
narrative films. So, and just to like, um, put that in perspective, Jeff, you said your performance was embarrassing at under 50%. I have seen 20 of those 41. So I've probably seen the fewest of the three of us, I would imagine.
Well, I'm pretty close. I'm at 24. I'm using Jeff's list and then filtering on Letterbox, and it's giving me 44 narrative films. But I'm guessing that also includes Winona Earp, which technically is a TV movie.
TV.
And then I'm
Yeah.
guessing there might be a couple other on here that might be considered TV films as well, since there is 3 additional films from what you're saying.
Yeah, I literally just went through the Wikipedia page and just put every narrative film I could find
Mm,
from the film section into it. So
yeah.
it's possible I missed some as well, because it's a lot of movies to keep track of. So
Yeah. It's tough because the Winona Earp movie was also nominated for Best Stunts in the feature film section, but all the other nominations seem to have come in the TV section.
I think best stunts might be shared between TV and
It
film
it
feature
clearly
film
is, yeah, because
because
Law and Order Toronto
bec-
is there. Yeah.
exactly Law and Order Toronto. That would have been really funny if Law and Order Toronto won and we were talking about Law and Order Toronto.
well, if we talked about TV, we would be talking about that show because it won Best Drama Series and a bunch of other awards.
It did, yeah. It kind of swept the dramatic side of TV this year, along with I believe Run the Burbs was the other big winner in the comedy side. But Matthew, yeah, sort of just to answer what you posed to me a little bit earlier in terms of the quality of filmmaking and things like that. It really just has to come down to budget limitations, which is just the unfortunate reality. I think it's funny because after the CSAs happened and The Apprentice was sort of the storyline of the winners, and of course, going alongside The Apprentice is the fact that recently. The person who is being portrayed in that film talked about putting tariffs on the movie industry, which, when you think about it for more than 2 seconds, makes absolutely no sense and is definitely not going to happen. But still, it's a talking point, and it's one that people in my industry were talking about when it happened. And I noticed online so many people complain and be like, well, now's the time they should invest in Canadian cinema. And so I engage with a few people. I'm like, if you want to watch Canadian movies, I will tell you how to do it either for free or for very cheaply. CBC Gem is free. There's a lot of great Canadian stuff on there. Crave, if you have that, tons of stuff is there. Some of the other streamers have started putting together Canadian packs of here's a section of our collected Canadian works, things like that. So I was getting a little frustrated because all these people were complaining about the industry needs to be invested in Canada, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, but are you putting in the work? Because if you want to complain, I want to see you do some action. And I just got a bunch of people pushing back on me saying it wasn't the same thing and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, look, if you want to watch Canadian content, it is there. You just have to put in the work and look for it.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think that you could swap out Canadian with the word indie, and it would probably be exactly the same conversation, because a lot of the time, and I'm not trying to say that everyone online is dumb or anything, I'm just saying that on socials, the things that get attention are the things that get promotion, and the only things that get promotion are the blockbusters. So, the people who are like, there's no original films in Hollywood anymore, it's like, no, you're just only watching the monthly tentpole movie. You need to broaden your horizons a little bit. It does take a small amount of work, but it's super rewarding when you do. So maybe you should do that, and then you wouldn't complain about not because you would have seen one of the literally hundreds of original movies that come out every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's just a frustrating thing on my end. And maybe it's because I like the two of you put in the work to try to find these things out, whether it's good independent movies, Canadian movies, international films that aren't produced by the Hollywood system, all that sort of stuff. This is our passion, obviously, but it's just a little frustrating when you hear things like that, or when you see things like that where it's just like there's no original movies. It's like, well, just open your eyes and look at something that isn't produced by Marvel, Disney, whatever, name, insert big studio here sort of thing. Not to get into the weeds too much about that. But yeah, I'm really excited. I know when I started planning this episode, I felt like the three of us hadn't seen a bunch of the same films, and then through what was available in just sort of the passage of time, I feel like we now have a lot of overlap and we can have some really good conversations about these films. But basically, yeah, like I said, we're going to talk about 10 of the big categories. We're going to mention who won and then who we would have picked to win. And that way we can kind of briefly touch on as many different subjects, or if we want to give a shout out to a different nominee or something like that. So I'm just going to kind of go in the order that I sent these to you. We're going to start with Best Direction, which the winner went to Matthew Rankin, the director of Universal Language. And then the other nominees are Naomi J. from Darkest Miriam, Adam Agoyan from Seven Veils, Henry Bernadette from Gamma Rays, Miriam Joubert from Who Do I Belong To, and Ara Bell from Loranyan FYT. So I'll start with mine. I absolutely love that Matthew Rankin won. He is incredibly deserving, and I'm so happy, and his speech was incredible. But if I was to give this award to anyone, it would be to Adam Agoyan for Seven Veils, because the transformative nature that he did of taking this opera that he had previously directed, decided to make a film about previously directing this opera while restaging it at the same time and including this really fascinating narrative with Amanda Seyfried. I absolutely adored this film. It just absolutely knocked my socks off, and he would have been a very, very, very worthy winner, in my opinion, as worthy as Matthew Rankin. Matthew, what would be your choice?
So I regret, I was, as you said, crunching through movies, and I decided last night to watch the film that had the most nominations left that I hadn't seen, so I didn't watch Seven Veils, but now I think I might watch it today. Um, but for me, I think Matthew Rankin is the obvious choice here.
Hmm.
And if of the ones I have seen, and I've only seen half of them, but of the ones I've seen, if I were to go with anyone else, it would have been Henry Bernadette for Le Rion Gamma, which is, I thought, a stunning film. Like, easily one of the best ones of the award show, which I watched last week. Sorry, Gamma Rays in English. And it's a stunning movie just about about young persons of color living in Montreal and the struggles they face. And it features a cast that is entirely kids from a high school drama program, which is incredible, and they're all really good. And it's also just beautifully shot and beautifully acted. Like, it's a great, wonderful movie. I kind of wish it had a bigger push this year. But honestly, yeah, Matthew Rankin, like that movie is very interesting for a movie that's in Farsi in an alternate universe. It is very specifically Canadian in a way that I can't quite describe.
Hmm.
I think it's a very an obvious and deserving choice.
Every time I hear an American has watched Universal Language, my first question is, yeah, but how well did you understand it?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost too specifically Canadian, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
it's very. I mean, it's in Farsi, and it's very clearly like just very. It's, I don't know. Specific is the only word I can think of to describe this movie. But if you
Yeah.
vibe with it, if you're with it, if you're on its wavelength, it is something truly special.
Yeah.
And I think it's in I think it's probably of all of the awards, I think I like him winning because I think it is, for lack of a better way to say it, the most artistic win,
Mm.
if that makes sense. Like, it's
Hmm.
the biggest swing, it's the most creative in terms of like what he's trying to say and how he's trying to say it.
Yeah. And Jeff, what about you? Who would your pick for best director be?
So I very much agree with Universal Language being a very, very deserving win. I don't know what it is about Winnipeg, but two of the most specific, probably the two most specifically Canadian films on this entire list that I've seen are by Winnipeg directors, which I think is just kind of neat. Or I don't know, is Matthew Rankin from Winnipeg? I know the no, I guess he is
He
because
is. Yeah.
this is about it's about Winnipeg and it's about Winnipeg because he's from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would also I'm unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see Gamma Rays. I might try and fix that this week. But I would also say Seven Veils. I remember going to this and this blew me away. I remember I went to it. I got out of the theater. 2 minutes later, I'd sent you a message, Dakota, like, you got to go see Seven Veils.
Yeah.
Drop what you're doing and go see it. And yeah, that's I would have picked Adam McGoyan. I think it's amazing that he got nominated here. To me, that would have been where it goes. But I do think that if anyone else was going to get this award, it should have been Matthew Rankin, and I think that it is the biggest swing. Adam McGoyan is a like Seven Veils is an extremely well and extremely, I guess, obviously well directed film. Universal Language is weird in a way that Seven Veils isn't quite. Although Seven Veils isn't like it's not weird either. But anyway, Universal Language is a very deserving winner there.
Yeah, Gamma Rays is definitely going to be mine and Jeff's big blind spot. So I'm really glad you were able to see it, Matthew, and can highlight it when you get the chance. That was the one I really wanted to get around to and wasn't able to. It was the only Best Picture nominee I didn't see. But let us move on.
For the record, the only one I didn't see, I know we'll get there, but the only one I haven't seen from Best Picture is the Who Do I Belong To?
Ah, okay. Well,
And
then I can bring that up when we need to.
yeah.
Let's go to best performance in a leading role drama. And for the CSAs, they do not gender their categories. They just do it by genre and lead and supporting. So there are 8 nominees per category. So that's why it might seem a little bit longer as I'm reading these out. The nominees were Village Keeper by Olunike Adayili. I apologize for pronouncing that incorrectly. I know I did. The Apprentice, Sebastian Stan. Gamma Rays, Chema Zenadine Eladrisi. The Thawing of Ice, Christine Billiot. Ada Kameki-sons. Oh wow, definitely pronounced that word wrong. Oshim Odawa, Die Alone, Carrie Ann Moss, Skeet, Sean Dalton, and Darkest Miriam, Britt Lauer. So the winner of this was Sebastian Stan from The Apprentice, which we're going to be hearing The Apprentice a lot on this episode. But Jeff, let's start with you with who you would have picked, and if you have any thoughts on Sebastian Stan winning.
So Sebastian Stan was my favorite performance of last year, period, and was also my pick for the Oscars, where he unfortunately did not win. So I'm very glad that he won at the CSAs. I think it's a little funny because like Sebastian Stan, not Canadian, and like not that you can win the Canadian Screen Award and not be Canadian, but like last year this was Glenn Howerton too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess not. He wasn't in the leading role, but also very like kind of the obvious pick, ran away with it. Also not Canadian. But yeah, I think that I'm really happy Sebastian Stan won this one. I think of all of the categories we're talking about today, this is the one where I would have been like most rooting for any specific person. I think he was just really incredible in that role. The way I think he's probably the first person I've seen to really nail Donald Trump and also not feel like he's doing an impression. It was like kind of scary to watch that transformation. If I were to pick a runner up, I was very happy that Britt Lauer was nominated. She's unfortunately no Sebastian Stan in this category, but also very good. So I just wanted to shout her out for Darkest Miriam briefly while I have the chance.
I completely agree with you there. I like in any other year I would have been all in on Britt Lauer winning because I love that performance so much, but it's really hard to go against what a Titanic performance that Stan turned in, and it's nice that it's still being discovered when people are watching and be like, oh my god, this is absolutely incredible. What a fascinating film and portrait of this person. So Sebastian Stan is my pick as well.
I was just gonna say, I've seen people like clip just part of the very last scene of that movie, and like there's a lot of close-ups of Sebastian Stan as Trump while he's talking to the guy who eventually will ghostwrite The Art of the Deal, and I've never seen anyone do Trump and get the lip acting like that. Like his lips are doing half the work, and you look at that and it's like, oh yeah, Donald Trump is very active when he speaks, but not with his hands, with his mouth. It's very strange. And like Sebastian Stan absolutely nails that. And I didn't even know that lip acting was a thing until I saw like that gif. I'm like, oh, or not gif, but like that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, wow.
Yeah, he does really nail it, doesn't he? It's kind of it's almost a shame that more people didn't see this movie because, like, I feel like a lot of people were in one of two positions with it where they were like, I'm worried that this movie is going to be praising him, which it very much isn't. Like, this is a skewering of the man. But then there's, I think, a bigger contingent of this that I think we don't really consider, which is, for example, my wife, who's like, I just don't want to see that motherfucker. Like, I just don't want, like, I have to see him on the news every day. Why would I watch a movie about him? Even if it's a skewering of him. Which I get, to be fair.
I was in that camp. I didn't watch it until he got nominated at the Oscars. So I only watch it because it was an Oscar nominee.
Yeah, but it's a stunning performance. Like, I think it's I'll tell you my one note about him winning this award. And this is going to come up at least 2 more times. And that is that he wasn't there to accept it. I wish he was there to accept it. That's all. That's my one note. I think it's the obvious choice. I think that, this will come up again when it comes to our best picture nominee category. But I think given it's kind of an overtly political win as well. I think given the events of Canadian American relations in the last 6 months, I think it makes sense that the movie skewering Donald Trump did so well. But it is easily you're right. He gets all the physicality that Stan brings to the role is so perfect. like and it feels natural. Like it doesn't feel like a caricature, but it does feel accurate. It's sort of stunning to watch, and I feel like anyone who sees that clip you mentioned, like that last speech, that speech feels so different in context with the rest of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
like so damning in context with the rest of the movie. It's like a fun scene either way, because you sort of get the impression that like he's a fake person, but like in context with the movie, it's not just he's a fake person. It's like, oh, he's a monster. Like that
Yeah.
scene is searing. Like it is such an indictment of him as a person in context in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do hope more people see it. It's widely available, because it is like it feels like. It's the other thing I love about that movie and his performance is that it doesn't feel like a caricature and it does feel accurate. The filmmakers clearly have some bias, obviously, but also you don't have to bring a lot of bias to tell a story about a monster accurately. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, but yeah. Anyway, I think Stan is a deserving win. Um, if it were me, I've seen what 5 of these 8 nominees, and if it were me, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of really great nominees here. Like, I didn't really vibe with Village Keeper, but Adieli was great in it. Um, Chima Zinedine, I think you say that name, El Idrisi from Gamma Rays. She's a first time actor. That is stunning. She's so good. And she was also nominated for like Revelation of the Year at the Quebec Cinema Awards. Um, she would probably be my choice. Her or maybe Britt Lauer from Darkest Miriam. Like it's a very good category this year. I'm happy with all the nominees that I've seen, and I think any of them winning would have been deserving. But I think Stan is the obvious choice.
Nice. Okay. Well, let us go to best performance in a leading role comedy. So we've got Universal Language, Rogina Esmaili, Universal Language, Piros Nemeti, Diener 89, Paul Spence, Paying for Emily Lay, Rumors, Kate Blanchett, Seed, Kanehito Horn, Ababund, Mila Valentier, and Look at Me, Taylor Olson. So the winner for this was Kate Blanchett for Rumors. Absolutely fantastic performance, and sort of continuing a trend where 3 of the 4 acting winners were the Hollywood actors, which on the surface, each win individually, I have no issue with, but it's just sort of the overallness. I wish it was a little bit different. I don't know what the qualifications are for voting, if you need to have seen a certain amount or not, because I feel like when you've got Hollywood actors, it's probably a little bit easier to see these films rather than some of the other ones, and that causes some of these smaller films to be ignored a bit, which is a bit tough. So I have complicated feelings about. We're going to get to it in one of the supporting ones, but basically 3 Hollywood actors winning 3 of the 4 performance awards. But Kate Blanchett is absolutely terrific as the Chancellor of Germany in Rumors in this G8 satire film. That's great that I know is going to come up again. I think I know what one of Matthew's future picks is going to be. But in terms of my favorite of this group, I think I would, I love Kate Blanchett, but I really loved Piros Nemeti from Universal Language. Playing this man who is a tour guide in Winnipeg, giving tours to some of the most mundane and what seems like boring things, like the Great Parking Lot Wars or the UNESCO World Heritage Site of a forgotten piece of luggage on a bus stop bench. It's fantastic stuff. And then the movie turned into something else, and we realize more about who this character is, and it becomes this utterly heartbreaking portrayal. So he goes from being a bit of this clownish character to this really heartfelt, sentimental character that I really enjoyed watching that transformation. And I thought he did an absolutely fantastic job, and I really want to see more of him in the future. Matthew, what would your pick be?
So my actual, so I'm fine with this category. I'm going to say this is the first category, and I don't want to get into it too badly here, but like it's the first category we're going to talk about where there's actually nominees I just don't agree with.
Mm.
Um, but I think Kate Blanchett is a great, call it a great winner. She's easily the best part, one of the two best parts of that film. And she always gives 110%. And to answer your criticism, I don't disagree that all these big Hollywood actors winning the awards. Again, I wish she was there to receive it,
Hmm.
but she is at least Australian. That's something, you know.
She's
That's
Commonwealth, yeah.
yeah, she's in the Commonwealth. That's fine. Um, but she's great in the movie. Like, there's no, I don't have any notes. Like, if I were to
No.
pick anyone else for this award, honestly, I don't think I would. I think if you put a gun to my head, I might say Emily Lay from Paying for It. Um, but I think Kate Blanchett is the pick here, and by a pretty wide margin.
Nice.
And that's
And
not to say anyone else is bad. Well, I am going to say at least one person is bad, but um, or at least I didn't like them. But I think Kate Blanchett is far and away the pick here.
yeah, we'll try to keep this as positive as possible. We don't want to poo-poo on any of these smaller films, but I understand what you're getting, and I might be in agreement with you. Although I know you feel a certain way about one of the films as well, so I don't know which one of the two it might be. But Jeff,
I'll
what
tell you
about you?
after. I
Yeah,
don't want to. It's going to come up that there's films I didn't like here, and I hate that I'm kind of that guy. But I'm also not going to tell you which one it is.
yeah.
I'll tell you after if you really want me to. But yeah, there's one film in this group of nominees that I like gave 1 star to.
I know exactly which one it is. Yeah.
So yeah,
Jeff, what about you?
I actually like all of these performances. I don't. I think I know the movie that Matthew's referring to, and I also didn't really love it, but I did like the performance in it, which is nominated here. So I would say, I mean, I don't disagree with Kate Blanchett, but I think here, for me, this is, I really love Piruz Namadi. I really love Emily Lee in this. I even like Paul Spence quite a bit, uh, even though I don't think I'm not 100% sure. He's one of the ones where I'm like, I'm not 100% sure why he's nominated because he's not really on the same level as Piruz Namadi or Emily Lee or Kate Blanchett. But I thought the movie was fun and I thought he was fun in it. So, I kind of like all of these performances. If it was totally up to me, I would probably give it to Piruz Namadi. But like I said, with the exception of the two I haven't seen here, which are Abba Boond and Look at Me, I liked all of these performances.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I hadn't seen those two either, so I can't really talk to them. But yeah, universal language, great performance, isn't it? All right, let's move on to best performance in a supporting role drama. So we've got first of 3 nominations for Village Keeper, Zara Bentham, and then for Mika Mensa Jato, and then Maxine Simpson, all from Village Keeper. And then from Darkest Miriam, we've got Tom Mercier, The Thawing of Ice, Lothair Blutau, and I feel really bad. I'm gonna keep messing up how to pronounce this movie name. Do either of you know how to say it?
I I can guess, and unfortunately, that's as good as I can do.
uh, Atika Mekhu Sons, and the nominee is Elise Yolande Awashish. And then Can I Get a Witness? Sandra Oh. And The Apprentice, Jeremy Strong. And this is the third Hollywood performance at one. Jeremy Strong was indeed the winner here. Does a fantastic job as Roy Cohn, the lawyer fixer up of the subject of that film. Just an absolutely devious performance by him. But we know what Jeremy Strong is capable of. He's turned in tons of great performances over the years, and this was no exception. Matthew, let's start with you in terms of who you would have wanted to win, if you have any thoughts on Jeremy Strong winning.
I mean, Strong puts in another great performance here. Um, I don't have any real notes. I think it's a very strong category. I think so. If I'm gonna highlight anyone else in this category, I would say it might be Maxine Simpson, who in, again, I wasn't a huge fan of Village Keeper. Like, I didn't hate it or anything, but it wasn't my favorite film of the year by any stretch. But she's a former nurse, and this was her first performance. I think she's stunning in it. So I think that's a very cool nomination, at least. Um, but if it were me, I honestly probably would have given it to Tom Mercier, though. The French guy who is in Darkest Miriam. I thought he was great. I thought that his performance in that film is very empathetic and uh, what's the right word here? Gentle, maybe. Um, and his chemistry with Britt Lauer and his place in the narrative and what his character serves in the narrative is all very affecting, very deeply affecting. If you have the right personal history for it. And I thought he was great. I think he's been great since what's that movie? He did a French movie. Can't remember what it's called. It'll come back to me. He's a great actor, and I think he would be my personal pick. But I have no notes about Jeremy Strong. He's Jeremy Strong. He puts himself 100% into characters. Seems like a bit of a weirdo, but in the way where he's pouring 100% of himself into his art, which I like, which I appreciate. So no notes. I think it's a great performance. Um, Anyone who can make me feel a little bit of sympathy for a monster can't be a bad actor. So do with that what you will.
Yeah. And Jeff, what about you? What are your thoughts on this category?
My thoughts are exactly the same as Matthew's. You said everything I was going to say, but more eloquently. So thank you. I was going to say Max. I was going to say Jeremy Strong makes sense for whatever reason. Like that performance did not. I understand it's a very good performance. I understand exactly why and how it's very good. For whatever reason, it just doesn't resonate with me the way it does for other people. So for me, I would have given it to either Tom Mercier or Maxine Simpson. But like Jeremy Strong is undeniably fantastic in that role, despite the fact that for whatever reason I just don't like him. Maybe it's because he's a monster and you're not supposed to like the monster. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just because he's doing a really good job.
I mean, he's a very effective monster. Like,
he is.
He's debatably a bigger monster than Trump in that movie, which is saying something.
I think it's debatably. Like I think it comes around. Sebastian Stan comes around. He one ups him by the end, but yeah.
Yeah. If this is going to sound really weird, but I think Roy Cohn is like a deeper monster, whereas Trump is like a broader monster. If that makes sense. Like Trump's monsterness is spread around a lot more, whereas Roy Cohn is like a very specific monster, and he's the worst one in his class. And that is like a very weird distinction to have to make. But it makes him at least as deeply unlikable as Trump. And I think but there's moments towards the end of that film where Trump has left him behind and he's dying. And I was like, for brief moments, I'm like, I almost feel bad for this guy. That's a stunning performance. That's amazing. Like I'm not supposed to I should be celebrating this man's slow, painful death from cancer. And in this moment, I'm not. And that's a weird thing.
For people who haven't seen the movie, near the end, there's a scene that's like Trump celebrating Roy Cohn's birthday, and it's the kind of thing you wish on your worst enemy in hell. And you're watching it, and you're like, "Oh man, I feel bad for Roy Cohn."
Yeah, it's weird. It's such a weird. Again, it's actually a great movie, and I hope more people see it eventually. But like, it is so weird, like feeling sympathy for. I mean, you never feel sympathy for Trump in that movie, but like for Cohn and for a few other people, you're just like, oh God, why am I feeling this way? Yeah. So yeah, to wrap it all up, yeah, Jeremy Strong, good nomination, good win.
And I'm basically just going to echo what the two of you guys said and be very boring here. And I also thought that Tom Mercier gave the best performance in this category, and I would have awarded him. He starts out, he's playing this cab driver who meets Miriam in a park as they're reading books across from each other. And
Sorry, that's not just any park. That's Allen Gardens.
You're right, Allen Gardens. Yes, in your neighborhood, Jeff. Of course, my apologies. My old work neighborhood back in Toronto. But yeah, he's a very quirky character, and every time we kind of learn something about him, we're like, oh, that's a little odd. And then there's a moment in the film that I'm definitely not going to spoil, but something happened, and it just sort of devastates you. And looking back, it shocked me so much. And looking back, I like immediately felt such immense pain of him already, of all the things that had come before. And so it was just an incredible performance that like sneaks up on you quietly and then impacts you greatly afterwards when you sort of, once the movie's over, you're like, I didn't know how good I had it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just absolutely blew me away.
I would just like to jump back in really quickly and say that, like, I think basically any of the nominations from Village Keeper in this would have been, like, if any of them won, I'd have been happy with it as well. Like, that's one more time, like, a movie I didn't really vibe with, but like all the performances are great, and Sarah Bentham in particular also would have been like a great win. So it's a pretty strong category. All the categories are pretty strong this year, which I'm pretty happy about. I'm realizing as we go through them a little more closely.
Yeah, that was a movie I really didn't end up caring for. So it made me hard to kind of root for it to win anything.
I mean,
But
again,
yeah.
I didn't love it, but I thought that the people in it were great.
Okay, that's fair. Let's move over to performance in a supporting role comedy. We've got three from Universal Language. The first one from Danielle Fichaud, then Amani Suleimanlu, and then lastly from Universal Language, Saba Vahad Yousefi. And then Diener 89, Will Sasso. Also from Diener 89, Mary Walsh. From Rumors, Roy Dupuis. From Seed, Graham Greene. And from 1995, Sandrine Bisson. And here we have the absolutely iconic Graham Greene winning in Best Supporting Role comedy. And basically, he is playing himself as a dream sequence character of when he used to host the forensic investigation TV show. What was it called? Exhibit A, I believe it was called. Which I definitely remember growing up seeing that on TV with his very soothing voice that he has, and he basically plays that character of himself in this film. Very, very small part, but there's a couple of the nominees here that have quite small parts. But Jeff, let's start with you again in terms of what your thoughts are on Graham Greene winning and who you would have picked.
So I'm glad I get to start on this because I have a feeling that we're all going to say the same thing again. I really liked Graham Greene in this performance. I thought he was kind of the standout of the movie for me. I thought he was really funny, and I am glad to see him win here. But for me, this is probably the other category I felt the strongest about, and I think it should have been Roy Dupuis. The same way that Sebastian Stan is like a very specific, targeted performance of Trump. Roy Dupuis plays a very like a hilarious version of that for Justin Trudeau in a way that I think if I were if I had American friends that saw Rumors, I would probably ask them the same question you did with Universal Language. You were talking about with Universal Language, but did you get it? Because that movie is such. There are the parts of that movie about Canada, like the Canadian Prime Minister, is such a specific vision of Justin Trudeau that I don't think you can even imagine if you haven't been like fully entrenched at least in Canadian life for the last like 10 years. And Roy Dupuis nails it so hard. He's hilarious in the movie. He's easily the best part of that movie for me, and it is an already very funny movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're like trying to depict who counts as a lead and who counts as supporting. Like I would have been perfectly fine with Roy Dupuis being a nominee in the lead category as well because he feels like such a lead character opposite Kate Blanchett. But they decided to I don't know, campaign or cement him in supporting. So it's very interesting of how that shook out.
Do you know why it feels like he's a lead performance? It's
Because he
because he's
is.
the protagonist of that film.
Yeah.
Like, my note here is, why wasn't he nominated in lead performance? And I get that the answer is probably that Kate Blanchett would have beat him, that he had a better chance at supporting. But like, he's the main character of that movie. He should have been in the lead performance category.
Yeah.
Doesn't he get the closing monologue?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's also, I think, first. I think he's first billed. He might be second billed after Blanchett for contractual reasons. I think, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but like, he's like, the prime minister is the protagonist of that film. So it's weird that he's not in the lead category. And as I love Graham Greene, I've loved Graham Greene my entire life, but I'm just gonna just get out of the way and say what Jeff said.
Fair, yeah. Especially since we look at Universal Language having 2 lead performance nominees, when if any film you want to say there isn't a lead character, it's probably Universal Language, just because the way the narrative shifts from story to story and we don't really stay on any one character for very long. But yeah, Roy Dupuis absolutely should have been in lead performance. And echoing what Jeff said, he is absolutely right that we are all on the same page of he absolutely should have been the winner here. Although I do want to give a shout out to Danielle Fichaud in Universal Language, who pops up as I don't know what her role is, but she's basically this minister in Quebec, and she only has one scene, and she's playing the boss of Matthew Rankin's character, and she's gender swapped as a man, and there's a lot of gender swapping going on in Universal Language, which I noticed so much more on rewatch, and it blew me away and added new depth to it. But Danielle Fichaud is in probably the funniest scene of Universal Language, this where she's yelling at Matthew Rankin about if he talks about working for Quebec, he has to say that it was a positive time there. Although he's also allowed to say it was a neutral time. So it either has to be the most positive experience of his life or the most neutral experience of his life, not negative. And it's just one of the funniest moments in a hilarious film that I just really want to shout out there.
Oh, that's who Danielle Fichaud is. I was wondering
Yes.
because she got nominated, and I'm like, is she even in this movie? And now that you're saying it, yes, it's just that she's gender swapped and very effectively.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a well-made movie. Every time we talk, we're gonna get there, but like, it's weird. It's great, the nominations that. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track. I'm just gonna stop here. I think you're correct, but I think that, yeah, I still think it's Roy Dupuis. It should have been Roy Dupuis for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, he was so good. Okay, I'm actually going to save Best Picture for last. I'm going to go through the other 4. Next up, we've got Original Screenplay, and we've got Universal Language. I'm not going to read all the nominees for the writing. There are a lot more names here, and I'm doing terrible with pronouncing names today. Universal Language, Village Keeper, Gamma Rays, Seeds, The Thawing of Ice, and Mongrels. And the winner of this was Universal Language, picking up one of its 6 awards here. Matthew, let's start with you. We were just praising Universal Language, but what are your thoughts on this win, and who would you have picked?
So I've actually seen all of these except for The Thawing of Ice, and I think that Universal Language is a very deserving win. I think it's probably the choice as well. I would like to shout out Jerome Yu for Mongrels. That is a beautiful, quiet, gentle movie about the immigrant experience in Western Canada, and I think it's a very deserving nomination. And I can't wait to see what Jerome Yu does next, based on it. But I think Universal Language is the pick here, and I say that as someone who, again, like, I adored Gamma Rays. That would be, if I was going to actually choose a second, like an alternate, it would be Gamma Rays for sure. It's I've already sort of gone into the reasons why when I talked about the actor before, but yeah, if it wasn't going to be Universal Language, it's going to be Gamma Rays for me.
Nice. And Jeff, what about you?
I've only seen 3 of these movies, unfortunately. I've seen Universal Language, Village Keeper, and Seeds. Of those 3, I definitely would say Universal Language. I have a feeling that even if I were to see the other 3, I would probably still say Universal Language, because Universal Language is it's just such a weird movie, but also one that that works. I mean, we've been talking about it a lot because it, among other things, it just really hits home, despite being in an alternate universe that shouldn't make sense, and yet it just really works. It's really an excellent screenplay, and I'm honestly, I guess I've only seen two Matthew Rankin movies, but I am blown away whenever he makes anything. So I'm very excited for his next movie, whatever that is. I think he's a very unique voice.
I'm just going to also chime in and say I'm actually kind of surprised that Rumors isn't nominated here. I think that any film
Yeah.
that writes Justin Trudeau as an ennui-filled fuckboy deserves a nomination.
Actually, yeah, I agree. I'm also a very weird movie in a not dissimilar way from Universal Language, probably because it's by Matthew Rankin's mentor,
Yeah,
Guy Maddin. So,
Yes.
yeah, very very specific.
mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, and to your point about watching more Matthew Rankin, I'm pretty sure he only has two feature films, so I think you've seen both of them because the other one is the 20th Century, which is even weirder. If anyone who's seen Universal Language and isn't sure how a movie can get weirder, I refuse to give the 20th Century a star rating because I don't know how to give a movie like that a star rating.
yeah, he does. I can confirm he does only have two feature-length films, but he's got like 15 or something short films that like he made at least one short film after the 20th century and before Universal Language, and I think he made like he's been making short films since the zeros, and he hasn't stopped.
Nice.
And I also do want to say, just while we're briefly talking about the 20th century features in the lead role Dan Byrne, who was not nominated for performance in a leading role this year, but in my opinion should have been for Paying for It, which we will talk about soon. We're going to talk about it soon.
Yes, yes, we will. And I agree with you guys. Universal Language is my pick for screenplay. It is so good. It's a world that is so unique and so familiar at the same time. And then Matthew Rankin also writes this really beautiful, poetic dialogue. Like for anyone who hasn't seen this yet, if you're a fan of Iranian cinema, you'll definitely see that he was paying close attention to how they craft their films and has crafted his own version of an Iranian film here. And the poetic nature of it all is so beautiful. And there's this, the final act of this is one that's hard to explain. And really, I still don't know if I fully get it, but it's just so beautiful and tender that you can't help but fall in love with it and fall in love with the fact that it is a bit left up in the air in terms of how you want to interpret things, which I really appreciate too. All right, let us move on to adapted screenplay. And our nominees are Darkest Miriam, Seven Veils, Paying for It, Sharp Corner, Shepherds, and Blue Sky Joe. I've been pretty good with this category. I've seen 5 of the 6 nominees. But Matthew, let's start with you. The winner for this year was Paying for It. What are your thoughts on Paying for It winning, and who would you have picked?
So I think I'm in the minority, at least among the three of us, in that I liked but didn't love Paying for It. But at the same time, I think it's actually a very deserving win. Um, Primarily because I think it's a really great example of adaptation. Um, the comic book that Paying for It is based on, also called Paying for It, is very autobiographical of its main character of um, Chester Brown, and the adaptation. So, for those of you who haven't seen it, the story starts out with Chester Brown and Sookyun Lee basically breaking up. These are real people. Uh, Obviously, if you're in the '90s, if you were a Canadian in the '90s, like I was, especially, like these people were ubiquitous, especially Sookyun Lee. But it starts out with them breaking up, and then him. It chronicles him going to prostitutes, basically, as opposed to seeking out any kind of like meaningful or monogamous relationship. He eschews romantic love from his life. It's very interesting. Um, the film, though, because Sookyun Lee adapted and directed it, which is a very meta thing to do in the first place, um, she also adds in a whole bunch of her experience from the same time, which is super interesting. It's very interesting to watch those two things play out in parallel. I think the screenplay is not perfect. There's definitely not enough conflict in it. There's definitely not enough of like interweaving of those two storylines. But I also think that by adding her experience and by stripping out some of the like more, for lack of a better word, like incelly bits of the original source material, I think it makes the whole thing better. Um, so I think it's a very deserving win. If I'm going to pick a second one, I'm probably going to go with Sharp Corner actually. So I've only seen Paying for It, Darkest Miriam, and Sharp Corner, and of those ones, I think I would give it to Sharp Corner if I had to choose a different one. Which is a film that I very interestingly didn't really like when I first saw it, but then couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks after. Um, so that would be my second choice. Uh, Looking forward to hearing you guys talking about Seven Veils, though.
Jeff, what are your
Um,
thoughts on this category?
so I really like this category because I think I've mentioned it in Oscars episodes, on my own show and probably on this show as well. Um, I really like adapted screenplay because of the idea of adaptation. Like, not just is this a good screenplay, but is this well adapted? And I think you hit the nail on the head with Paying for It. I think I've seen this movie now 3 times. And one of the times that I saw it was a Q&A with Sookie Lee and Chester Brown. And then I went to a talk that Chester Brown gave a few days later, just in celebration of the 2024 edition of the book. Um, and so I've heard the people involved in this movie talk about it a lot, and I think it's interesting that you bring up that there's not enough conflict. I think you're right, but to hear Chester Brown talk about it, he's like, "There's too much conflict. She added so much. We're totally fine." And then also he said that when he watched the movie the first time, and you see like how upset Sukian is in certain parts with Chester, he's like, "Did you really feel that way? You never let on anything." She's like, "Yeah, I was super obvious about it. What are you talking about?" So it's really interesting because the original source material, it's autobiographical, but it's very dry, almost to the point of being like a diary. Like there's even less conflict in the book because it'll be like, "I went to a prostitute on this day. This is sort of how it went. Next chapter, I went to this prostitute on this day." It's like it's it's there's barely a story, which is really interesting how that gets adapted into this movie. Because to hear them both talk about it, Chester Brown is a very analytical person, and he just writes very analytically, very like coldly, where Sookyun Lee is a very emotional person. She'll write very emotionally, and so to get those two worlds together, it's really interesting. It's almost like, I mean, maybe this is an extreme comparison, but it's like Paul McCartney and John Lennon. They're both very weird in their own ways, but when you put them together, that magic happens. And I think that's what's going on with this screenplay. So I am very happy about this one winning here. Um, I do want to say 2 other ones very briefly. I really like Seven Veils and Shepherds in this category because of the way they adapt the source materials as well. Seven Veils is about staging this play, and it is not technically autobiographical of Adam Egoyan, I guess, because it is fictional, but like it is very much, he's putting his own experience into it. He directed the movie while he was directing the restaging of the opera. It's really cool how he ties that together and how he adapts that material, because essentially Seven Veils is an adaptation of Salome, but it's obviously so much more than that, and I think that's really cool to see it here. And Shepherds, you'll notice that one of the writers for it is Matthias Lefebvre, whose name I just butchered. But what happened with this, I saw it at Canada's Top 10, and Sophie Darasp says she was really intrigued by this story. So she went and found the person who wrote the autobiographical story that Shepherds is based on, Matthias, and they wrote the movie together. And they like relived the movie, and they relived his experience, going abroad to France to become a shepherd. And so I think it's really interesting how I really like adapted screenplay as a way for people to sort of relive their own experiences through a different perspective. And I think that it's really cool that we have at least three movies here that are doing that. And so I would have been fine with any of those winning. I'm very glad that Paying for It won.
Yeah, I am also very happy that Paying for It won. Uh, I did warn Matthew when he told me that he didn't care as much for Paying for It as I did. I was like, well, careful now. That's one of Jeff's favorite movies of last year. Don't start a fight now. But I'm glad that was fairly civil. So thank you guys.
Well, I mean, again, I didn't dislike the movie. I just didn't. I just, I saw both of your ratings on Letterboxd, and I was like, oh, I like this movie, and they loved it. Like it's an interesting place to be, and I get everything that Jeff is saying about it too. And when I say I think the film needed more conflict, I basically just think like a lot of the film plays out in parallel narratives that don't come back to one another often enough. Basically, like whether that would require like a degree of like fictionality, to make up a word for it, to like make them have more conversations where they frankly discuss what's going on in their lives, um something like that, just to like make it clear that they are in this boat together, because a lot of the film they are separate. And but that being said, like each of those stories is great, and in particular the main guy whose name just blipped out of my brain, um yeah, gives such a like wonderful gentle performance, of the material. Like it's a very deserving win. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't get more nominations across the board.
Yeah. And then for me, this is very tough between Seven Veils and Shepherds for all the things that Jeff was also saying. I adore the complexity of Seven Veils, and I adore the simplicity of Shepherds and what this narrative structure is. So this is really tough. I think I'm going to go with Shepherds just because of how much I did. I love this movie so much. These movies are like equally tied for my best of the year so far. They're just so unique and beautiful, and I
So
love them both.
I haven't seen Shepherds, but it won an award at TIFF last year, didn't it? Oh yeah, Best Canadian Film Award at TIFF 2024. Ooh, and a finalist for Rogers Best Canadian Film Award of the Toronto Film Critics Association 2024. So yeah, I get it. This movie needs to move up my watch list for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a stunning piece of work. And I didn't know that it was adapted. Like, spoiler alert, we're talking about this being an adapted nominee. I didn't realize that when I was watching it, and not until the end credits. And oh boy, did that make me love the movie even more.
I have a question before we move on about this one. Have either of you seen Blue Sky Joe?
No,
No. And have either of you seen Sharp Corner? Am I the only one who's seen Sharp Corner?
no, we
Yes,
all saw it.
Oh,
I
okay.
really loved it actually.
I yeah, it's an interesting one. Like for again, like I feel like it's not getting talked about enough, and I'm definitely guilty of this because I again, the first time I saw it, I didn't really get it. But then I just couldn't stop thinking about it for like weeks and weeks and weeks afterward. And I think that's also like a brilliant thing about like a brilliant thing for a movie to do is to be like to get you thinking and get you feeling things for a long time afterward. And Sharp Corner definitely did that for me.
I saw your review of Sharp Corner, and I think you felt similar. Like, I think I felt similar about Darkest Miriam, the first time I saw it. Where the first time I saw it, I didn't quite get it, but I saw it now at Fantasia Film Festival, so almost a year ago, and I've been thinking about it like since then. So I think there's really something to be said about a movie that can do that. Which I guess Darkest Miriam is in this adapted screenplay category as well. So
Yeah, like I think I gave Sharp Corner like 2 out of 5 when I first saw it last year, which in hindsight is freaking crazy, like like absolutely wild. And like I haven't had a chance to rewatch it because it's not out yet, which is another conversation about the Canadian Screen Awards. But like it's not out in wide release yet. But I feel like when I see it again, it's gonna go way up in my estimation.
I think at time of recording, it came out this weekend in some Canadian cinemas. I'm in Toronto, so anytime a limited release happens, it also kind of feels like a wide release. So I
Yeah,
don't think it's actually a wide release, but it is now in certain theaters.
yeah, I think it's doing a rollout release. So it actually is probably playing somewhere in Vancouver too, but I think it's doing like a slow roll from Elevation Pictures. So yeah, I look forward to seeing it again. I honestly probably won't see it again until it's on streaming somewhere or on demand somewhere, but I very much look forward to seeing it again.
Nice. Yeah. I quite like Sharp Corner too. I had my issues with it mainly in the underdeveloped character for Kobe Smulders was a bit unfortunate and some wonky CGI. But other than that, I thought it was a very terrific film, a very thought provoking one of one man's descent into utter madness. In a way that like makes complete sense for this character in this movie, and I really liked it too. And that's Ben Foster for you, which also I'm not trying to make this all about how could this person not be nominated, but like how the hell could Ben Foster not be nominated in terms of getting some Hollywood people in?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
true. He's great in it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us move to the John Dunning Best First Feature Film. So one nice thing that the CSAs does is they do award a filmmaker best first film. And interestingly enough, in the past, you used to have to apply to be eligible for this. And they found too many filmmakers weren't realizing that they were eligible or didn't know. So a whole bunch of high quality first films were not being nominated. And I think it became a why the hell are these movies not being nominated? So instead, any first feature is eligible. You do not need to submit your film, which I think is an excellent rule change because they should not be in charge of having to submit their own film for a specific award like this, which is BS. But the nominees are Diener 89, directed by Sam McGlynn, Village Keeper, directed by Karen Chapman, Seeds, directed by Kanehito Horn, Who Do I Belong To, directed by Miriam Jabbour, Hunting Days, directed by Annick Blanc, and Mongrels, directed by Jerome Yu. So the winner for this was Village Keeper. I am not a fan of this movie, and I would not have awarded it this. I'm differ from Matthew on how his feelings is, but I've seen all 6 of these nominees, which is crazy. There's a few categories that we're not talking about today that I've seen all of the nominees, but of the ones that we're talking about today, this is the only one where I've seen all of them, so I feel very qualified to talk about my thoughts on this category. There are some, unfortunately, uneven films in this that I wish were stronger, but, that's the nature of a first film, is you often do the best you can and you learn how to grow and improve and hone your craft. And it would be very exciting to sort of see where these 6 filmmakers go from here, because I think all of the movies, while I didn't care for all of them, showed moments of greatness, and I appreciate what this category does. I'll give a small shout out to Mongrels. I finished watching it this morning. I think it's a very beautiful and lyrical film, even though it didn't totally work for me. I still appreciate what Jerome Yu was doing, and we're going to talk about cinematography next. Should have been a nominee there. Beautiful cinematography. That said, of all these films, I think I would have gone with Hunting Days. On the surface, this seems like a movie you may have seen before, where an exotic dancer ends up staying in a cabin with a bachelor party she had originally performed for, and ends up becoming a part of their wolf pack, and how her presence sort of disrupts their chemistry and causes them to act out in different ways that you might not expect. It's a little hard to explain this film if you haven't seen it, but I was constantly worried for her, and it turns out that was not what I should have been worried about going into that film. But still, very entertaining film. It's got some good laughs. It's got some good thrills. It's for free to watch on Tubi, and it is shot gorgeously as well. So I'm very happy that this got nominated, and I would have totally picked Hunting Days to win Best First Feature Film. Jeff, what about you? What are your thoughts on this category?
So I've unfortunately only seen three of these. I've seen Diener 89, Village Keeper, and Seeds, and I'm gonna turn this one around a little bit because I don't think there's an obvious choice among the three for me there. But I actually think that of those three, I probably would have given it to Seeds because I think that again of those three, it's the most like singular vision. Like Ganetio Horn made exactly the movie she wanted to make, and it like could only be made by her. Uh, Perhaps it's the same with Karen Chapman. Seeds is just very, I guess it's very clear in its vision, and I think that's an amazing thing for any filmmaker to have when it's like, I mean, it's her first feature, so we don't know how Ganitio Horn is going to be as a director going forward. But I like seeing someone in this where maybe in the future I can see another movie and like without even knowing go that's a Ganitio Horn movie. I did not get that. I don't want to. I don't want to be negative. I did not get that same thing from Diener 89, which even though it's a Sam McGlynn movie, to me felt like Paul Spence was the main driving force there because this is a
Mm-hmm.
character that he had already originated several years ago, and while I would never say that Sam McGlynn, the director of this movie, did not have significant input into it. I do feel like that was a Paul Spence vehicle more than Seeds was a like more than a Sam McGlynn vehicle, where Ganatio Horn with Seeds just very very much her thing.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying there, and I agree. That was very much a look at her and her culture and the way social media influences are going, and I think that you are right in terms of that being very much a singular voice from her, and it probably also has to do with that she's also the lead performer.
Well, yeah, that too.
Which doesn't hurt, where you can make the one-to-one comparison of she wrote this movie, she directed this movie, she starred in this movie, this is her story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I completely get what you're going with that, and I think that's a good reason to pick Seeds as a winner there. Matthew, what about you?
I honestly, what you said, uh, um,
Nice.
like hunting days for me is easily the most exciting of all these films. I've seen five of the six of them. The only one I haven't seen is Who Do I Belong To. Um, there's two films in this category that I straight up did not like. Um, but Hunting Days was easily the biggest surprise for me. Um, if you look at the poster, if you read the log line, and if you watch the first like 10 minutes, it sets itself up. It sets you your expectations for a certain kind of movie, and then
Absolutely.
like by the end of the first act, it's gone in a completely different way that you don't expect,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a difficult thing to achieve, or at least to achieve well. Like it goes
Yeah.
into, it takes all of your expectations of what you know one exotic dancer stuck for a weekend with five horny dudes, everything you're going to expect about what that kind of horror thriller movie is going to be, it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really interesting, I'm going to use the word brave choice to set something up and then subvert it so entirely. Um, and it's another one where I can't believe that the lead performer isn't nominated anywhere. Like Nahima Ricci is so good in this movie, and her
Yeah.
character is written so well, um, and just the way that she disrupts the dudes, like the guys' friendship, whilst also integrating with it, is really interesting and really well executed. And if it were me, that's easily the one I would go with. I will also, again, shout out Mongrels. I agree that it is not, with you again, Dakota, it's not the most even of films. Like, it doesn't 100% work, but it is a beautiful film. And I
Hmm.
think it's a very worthy nomination. It's definitely one where, much in the way that Jeff was saying that, like, Seeds has a very specific voice and vision, I feel like Mongrels has that too. Like, I'm excited to see what Jerome Yu does next. And also, I'm excited to see another film and be able to go, oh, that's a Jerome Yu movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a very worthy nomination. But yeah, I think Hunting Days is, for me, Hunting Days is the easy pick here.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that movie.
You're right about Ricci Whippengrave. She was nominated, and same with several of the guys too, especially Bruno Marcel, who kind of plays the oldest one of the guys in the group, and sort of the de facto leader of the group.
Yeah.
All right, let us go to Best Achievement in Cinematography. We've got Paying for It from Gail Yee, The Invisibles, Maya Bankovich, Shepherds, Vincent Gonavale, Close to You, Catherine Lutz, and Young Werther, Nick Haight. Uh, let's start with you, Matthew. What are your thoughts on this category, and what would you have picked?
So this is a category I think I've actually seen the fewest of the nominees. I've only seen two.
Mm,
And of those two, I honestly like. I think that Young Werther is a more interestingly shot movie than Paying for It, but I don't think that Paying for It is a poorly shot movie. I think it's a perfectly fine win based on my limited knowledge of the category. Um, Young Werther is definitely kind of more my thing. Like, that is a weird film full of whimsy, and it is shot as such, and I enjoyed it. But I honestly don't feel like I have. I don't really feel like I have enough skin in the game to be like, Gail Yee should or should not have won. You know, like
that's fair.
I haven't seen enough of them, and Paying for It is well shot. It's well put together. It's a little um, basic is probably the wrong word. Like, it sounds kind of negative, but for a film that is really quiet and gentle and really just about the experience of the main character, that's sort of what it requires. And then also, like, there's a lot of great Toronto shots and a lot of great, like, 90s detail in the Toronto shots. So I uh, I have no qualms about this win, and I don't have enough to say who else should have won.
That's fair. Between Paying for and Young Werther, they shot Toronto beautifully.
Mhm.
Young Werther is like, I kind of can't believe it didn't get a bigger push. Like, that seems like they could be um, they could be talking about Jose Lorenco as like Canada's Wes Anderson. You know, like, I don't know
Hmm.
why they aren't pushing it harder. Um, and it's also got like lots of great people in it. Like, it's one of those weird things with Canadian cinema where occasionally they churn out like, and I'm well, churn out. They make a great film and then like nobody's heard of it, even though it's full of great people and shot really well and written really well, and you know, that movie's full of whimsy and fun and also ennui and heartbreak. And I don't get why it didn't get a bigger marketing push.
Yeah, that was my big disappointment. That Young Werther only got one nomination. That should have been all over the CSAs. I've waxed poetically quite a bit about this movie. If you follow the podcast or follow me on socials, things like that. Lorenko is an absolutely terrific director, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. Because yeah, you're right with all the whimsy he has, and what a fantastic eye. Jeff, what about you? What are your thoughts on this category?
The only one of these I haven't seen is Close to You. Uh, I do want to just say Shepherds has some incredible landscapes in it. So when I was looking at cinematography, I saw I'm like, my eyes zoomed in on Shepherds, and I just thought that's the one. But then I remembered Paying for It and Young Werther. Honestly, I think either of those would have actually been my pick. I love the way that they shot Toronto. It's a bit of a meme to say, but I do think that they managed to sort of make the city a character in their own different ways. And for me, I would have been happy with either one winning. Personally, I think I would have gone a little more with Young Werther because I think the cinematography in Young Werther has a little more personality than in Paying for It. I think that in Paying for It, a big part of, when I'm saying Toronto as a character, I think in Young Werther that really comes through in the cinematography, and in Paying for It, I think that comes through a lot more in the production design. Personally, But Paying for It is a very well shot film, and I love that film anyway. So like, I'm happy with that one winning. I think I would have picked Young Werther.
I think this might be a case of like I think that they are both actually shot really appropriately for the material that they're presenting, and I think that Young Werther is quote more, like give me a little more is what it sort of has, and I think that I'm definitely guilty of that being my thing sometimes, where like there's especially in acting where there's like a great performance and then there's a more performance, and that's usually the one that gets more attention. I think that is I think I am a little guilty of that here, but I think that also that moreness, that's a word I'm making up, the moreness, suits Young Werther incredibly well. So yeah, Young Werther I think is the one that probably out of the ones I've seen, Young Werther is the one I think should win.
Nice. Okay. I agree with what you guys are saying, but for me, it's very easily Shepherds. I know, Matthew, you haven't seen it yet. Not only was it the best cinematography in a Canadian film this year, it might be one of the greatest shot films I've ever seen. The stunning landscapes. There's a moment in the film where three people are sitting on the side of a mountain watching the sunset, and we're just looking at them on this beautiful mountainside, and it's obviously already a beautiful picture. And then all of a sudden, the camera does a reverse shot to the sun slowly setting behind the mountains, and it is just one of the most tranquil images I've ever seen. It's so beautiful. And then there's all these shots of these large flocks of sheep going through the mountains, going through the streets of the cities as they're passing through towns, all this sort of stuff. And I have no idea how they shot that because, like, I know this is a Canadian film, so the budget wasn't huge for doing something like CGI. So these are all practical sheep, and I read later that I think they use like 4 or 5 different flocks to make this one big flock, and they would have had all of these actual shepherds off camera helping out. But we get these impressive long takes of the two lead characters walking through the streets of a city with this entire flock of sheep following them, and you don't see anyone else except for passerbys and pedestrians watching in awe. And I need to know how they filmed that. Like, stuff like that was just so incredible to watch. This is a stunningly beautiful film. If you watch this for no other reason, watch this for the cinematography. It is that good. But everything else is also good. We keep talking about missed nominations for actors. All of the actors in Shepherd should have been nominated too. They were all incredible. So yeah, that is my pick here.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with a lot of that. Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful film.
I haven't seen it, as you both know, as I've already said, but I've just noticed that it is available on Crave, so maybe that's the one I watched this afternoon.
Watch it on your
Ooh, yeah.
biggest TV.
Well, I'll watch it on my
Yeah.
only TV.
Yeah, your biggest one.
Yeah, the biggest one.
All right, so let's get to the last category of the day here, and that is Best Motion Picture, saving the best for last. The nominees were Universal Language, Village Keeper, Darkest Miriam, The Apprentice, Gamma Rays, and Who Do I Belong To? So I'm going to kick things off here. The Apprentice was the winner here, which is interesting because much like the Oscars, director and Best Picture normally go hand in hand, but this year they did not. We had Matthew Rankin win for Universal Language for direction, and The Apprentice won for Best Picture. I love this film. I think it's incredibly well made, super competent. I really enjoy the conceit of, also maybe should have been a nominee in cinematography, changing the look of the cameras, the film stock as the film progresses, going from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s. I thought they did a great job with that. But that said, I really was rooting for Universal Language to win. This is a nearly flawless film. It is a great representation of the best that Canada has to offer, and I really wanted Universal Language to win, and I thought that was going to happen when Rankin won Best Director. So I was quite shocked when The Apprentice ended up winning. Even though it is still a very solid film. I've seen 5 of the 6 nominees. The only one I didn't see was Gamma Rays, which that's the only one that Matthew's the only one of the 3 of us who has seen that. So you also really loved it, so I don't know if that would have been your pick or not. But Matthew, what are your thoughts on the category?
So, much like I said when we talked about Sebastian Stan, I think that given the events of the last 6 months, I think that The Apprentice is an unsurprising winner. we'll say. Um, and I think that might account at least a little bit for why it didn't also win, or it wasn't even nominated for Best Director. I don't think it was it?
Which one? Sorry.
The Apprentice.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ali Abbasi was not nominated.
yeah. So I think that that might account for some of its win. Not trying to diminish it. It is a good movie. It's actually a great movie. I think that most people should see the movie. Um, that being said, I think that Universal Language is probably the obvious pick, but having watched a lot of these movies in the past like 2 weeks, my pick would actually be Gamma Rays. It is the one, easily the one that I've liked the most out of all of the nominees that I've seen. I think it is uh, very in a very different way. It is very specifically Canadian, um, in that it's about young people in Montreal, and in particular, young people of color in Montreal, just existing and what it's like to exist today. And um, I also just think that the way that it was approached and the way that it was made sort of set it apart from the rest of the films. Like it's very, because of the way it's shot, it's very, there's a lot of actually very beautiful cinematography of Montreal, and then also by setting it in a very specific, it's set in one neighborhood, and it's cast using mostly first time actors out of a high school drama program, um, from that neighborhood. It feels very, very authentic. Um, so when I say it's very specifically Canadian, you could actually even distill that down to it feels very specifically Montreal, um, in a way that it really resonated with me personally. So if I were to make a second choice, it would probably be Gamma Rays. I think The Apprentice, in terms of just, you know, the state of the world, The Apprentice is actually the choice, um, especially given the last 6 months. But for me, I think it would have been Gamma Rays.
Nice. And Jeff, what about you?
The Apprentice is the obvious choice. Boo, boring. Um, no, I think that it's like, I mean, I've already said it a few times. I think it's an incredible movie. I am not, well, like Matthew said, it's not a surprising win. I think it is at least. I think it is a largely deserved win. I personally would really have loved to see it go to Universal Language instead. I have not seen Gamma Rays or Who Do I Belong To, which especially after Matthew talking about it so much, I definitely need to see Gamma Rays at least as soon as I possibly can.
For the
Um,
record, I rented it this week from iTunes for like $5, and it's the best $5 I've spent in months.
all right. Well, I'm gonna get to it as soon as I have time this week. I'm gonna grab Gamma Rays because I gotta see it. Um, but yeah, I would have gone with Universal Language because it is, well, it's probably my favorite of these movies that I've seen that are at least in Best Motion Picture. And it is very specifically Canadian, which doesn't have to account for much when it comes to Best Motion Picture at the CSAs, but I like when it does. Like Blackberry was also a very Canadian story, and I mean it kind of ran away with everything. It was very good, but I like to see. Um, I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see Universal Language go get Best Motion Picture here.
Nice. Yeah. It would have been a very, very worthy pick. But yeah, there we go. There are our thoughts on 10 of the categories of the Canadian Screen Awards. That was a great conversation, guys. And I hope this encourages some people to check out some of the films because there were some really great ones. Even the ones that I hadn't seen, there's still more I want to watch. I really got to watch Gamma Rays. That's really high up on my list. Matthew, I can't wait for you to watch both Seven Veils and Shepherds, because I think both are going to knock your socks off, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on them.
I mean, I'm honestly like, I'm looking forward to watching both of them, and the reason I'm probably going to watch Shepherds first is that it's available in a way I don't have to pay for, which is the shallowest
Nice.
thing I could
Yeah.
possibly say. But it's also just the easiest, and I'm feeling it's Sunday, so that's what's going to happen. It's interesting bringing up just very briefly Blackberry. I feel like Blackberry may have been, time will tell, but I feel like Blackberry might have actually been a bit of a turning point for Canadian cinema, and because it did so well in the States as well, and in lots of other areas and really sort of highlighted like what we can do. Like, don't get me wrong, Brother is amazing, Scarborough is amazing, Beans is amazing. Um, like lots of the films that have won Best Picture, even just in the 2020s, are all great. Um, but I feel like Blackberry could be the one that, like, in hindsight, will be like, yeah, that was the turning point. That might actually be like the most important Canadian film of the 2020s. Not because it was better than anything else, although I think it was one of the better films of that year, um, but because it really like gave us a big successful project that might really convince people that we can do that kind of thing and hopefully encourage more investment in Canadian film. And hopefully The Apprentice does the same thing, is my lukewarm take of the day.
I love that thought. And then, Jeff, do you have any final thoughts?
I won't dwell on it for very long, but I do want to shout out one category that we did not talk about today. Another category where I've actually only seen half the nominees, so bear with me. But Best Feature Length Documentary. The winner of that category was Yinta. The other movies nominated that I've seen were Disco's Revenge and Okurimono, and the other movies nominated I haven't seen are Analog Revolution, How Feminist Media Changed the World, and Wilfred Buck. I wanted to shout that out because it is an incredible category this year. Yinta was a very deserved winner. I also really loved Okurimono and Disco's Revenge, and I think that Canadian documentaries are in an incredible place right now, and I want to just briefly tell people about that because at least two of these are available on Crave to watch very easily, and I think the rest are also available fairly easily. I just know about the two that I watched on Crave in the last few weeks. So please support Canadian documentary as well, even though we didn't get a chance to talk about it as much here.
I can confirm that two things for you. One, Disco's Revenge is great. And two, I haven't seen it, but Yinta, at least in Canada, is on Gem and Netflix.
Oh, whoops, not Crave, Gem, yes, and Netflix. Thank you.
Yeah, documentaries is one I wish we could cover. They get their own basically huge portion of awards, and it just would have been too many films to also try to track down and watch.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're not deserving, but they have their whole subsection of awards that just would have been a little bit too much for us to cover here today. But guys, thank you so much for coming on the show today. What a terrific episode. Matthew, where can people find more of your work and what do you have going on?
Oh, so the easiest place to find me is actually here, since I'm now officially a co-host of this show, along with Jeff. And to find my recent work, you can check either my portfolio homepage, which is stretched.ca, or my Patreon, which is patreon.com/mcsimpson. I am trying to work out some more like original content for the Patreon, so follow me there for free. You can do it for free. I'm not going to put anything behind the paywall. It's just if you want to pay, that's great. And then on the socials, you can find me almost everywhere at SmatthewAF.
Nice. And Jeff, what about you? Where can people find more of your work and what do you have going on?
Well, people can find me on this show. And I also write an awful lot for ContraZoom Pods. You can find my written stuff there. I have my own podcast, Classic Movies Live. We've been a little irregular this year. We're kind of figuring out. I think both of us are pretty busy. I just had like a big move, and Pierre's been very busy as well. But we're gonna get back into the swing of things. We got two more episodes that we're gonna record here very soon. Both of which I'm very excited about. One is gonna bring on, in my opinion, the biggest guest we've ever had. And the other one, probably the next one we're going to do is one I'm very excited about. We're going to watch two very new Stephen King movies that I think maybe unintentionally kind of rhyme, and I'm very excited to talk about them. So that's our next episode.
Ooh, that's very exciting. I can't wait to hear that. Make sure you head over to ContraZoomPod.com, where along with a collection of Canadian Screen Award reviews, we also have reviews for The Woman in the Yard, written by Jeff, In a Violent Nature, and a review of the restoration of the 1996 Japanese film Shall We Dance. This has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. Follow the show on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads at ContraZoomPod. What were some of your favorite Canadian films from the past year? Let us know and send an email to ContraZoomPod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.